Hey, it's Candace here. Welcome to part 2 of Module 5. This is lesson number 1, which I've called Values Revisited, because we're going to be going over a quick summary of what we've covered, plus introduce some new concepts surrounding values. So how did your past week go? How did it go clarifying your values? Let me know how your experience was doing this by leaving a comment below. I'm really interested in hearing about your experiences and what you encountered, what you discovered. So please feel free to leave a comment below. All right, so if you remember, values give us the inspiration and motivation to persist, to do what needs to be done even when the going gets rough. Values give us guidance. They are like a compass. They guide our journeys, give us direction, and keep us on track. And values provide us with fulfillment as we move toward our goals. Now, one of the most common words you're going to hear in this program that you have been hearing is practice. I pointed out several times that we can't expect to feel confident and calm in any activity until we have developed the necessary skills. And we can't develop those skills unless we practice. So we also need to develop a capacity for mindfulness so that we engage fully in whatever we're doing and diffuse from unhelpful thought processes like worrying, perfectionism, and self-doubt. And obviously, that also requires practice, right? That's what we've been doing throughout this entire program. Now, again, of course, it's much easier to talk about practice than to do it. Why? Well, because practice brings up uncomfortable thoughts and feelings. Even thinking about it often makes us uncomfortable, and human beings do not like feeling uncomfortable. So what do we tend to do? Well, we tend to avoid the discomfort, so we don't do the practice. We either put it off until later or we come up with reasons why we can't do it. And it's only natural that we do this. After all, in that moment, when we decide to put it off or skip it, we usually get an instant feeling of relief. All those uncomfortable thoughts and feelings disappear, right? And that feels good. And everybody likes to feel good. Now, I'm not saying this is necessarily you or this is what you've been doing, but in my experience, at this point in the program, it tends to be a good time to bring these points up again, to give you a little bit of a reminder, because you are so close, so close. I'd hate to see you stop now, or I hate to see you stop practicing these additional strategies and techniques that we're going to be covering. Okay, so I don't want you to start resorting to making unworkable choices to do what gives you the least discomfort in the short term rather than what gives you the most fulfillment in the long term. Because there's actually a fancy term for this phenomenon called experiential avoidance. And we've discussed it before. Experiential avoidance means trying hard to avoid or get rid of unwanted thoughts and feelings. It's something we all do to some degree, but the more unwilling we are to make room for discomfort, the lower our quality of life. High levels of experiential avoidance directly correlate with reduced performance, increased stress, and higher risks of depression and anxiety. All things, of course, that we don't want. So the more we try to avoid discomfort, the more we base our actions on how we feel rather than on what is most important in our life. In other words, we avoid doing things that are important and life-enhancing because we are unwilling to make room for the uncomfortable thoughts and feelings that show up. And the more we choose action that gives us the short-term relief from discomfort rather than doing what enriches our lives in the long term, the smaller and emptier our lives tend to become. Okay, if you recall, that's called living in the comfort zone. And we don't want to be in the comfort zone because that's the missing out zone, the losing out on life zone. So I want to ask you at this point, have you skipped any of the exercises so far in this program? If so, ask yourself, why did you do that? Your mind might well have tried to justify this choice by not doing the exercise, by saying the exercise wasn't important or that you'll do it later. But isn't it the case that when you considered doing it, you felt some discomfort? I mean, if you're honest with yourself, did you feel some discomfort? And when you chose to skip it, you felt some relief, right? If so, experiential avoidance has been dictating your choices, including what you've been doing in this program. I want to bring this up now because It directly ties into your values. When we put off or opt out of important goals and challenges, chances are that we're not being true to ourselves. We're not behaving like the person we really want to be. We're not making choices in line with our long-term best interests. So, how do we get past all this? How do we get ourselves to do the practice? Do we read a Nike poster and then just do it? Do we ask the universe to make it easy for us? Do we vividly imagine all our dreams coming true? Well, these things tend not to be sustainable in the long term. What is sustainable? What can get us going and keep us going even when we're tired, miserable, anxious, bored, frustrated, fearful, or not in the mood? What can motivate us to step out of our comfort zones into challenging situations that are guaranteed to bring up fear and anxiety? Yeah, you guessed it, our values. Okay, so needless to say, getting really clear about your values is essential. This is why, just in case you ran into some difficulties doing this in part 1 of this module, I'm going to provide you with strategies to overcome these difficulties in this part. And we're going to start by providing you with a list of common values. Now, not all of these will be relevant to you, and keep in mind that there's no such thing as right or wrong values. It's a bit like our taste in pizza. Okay, if you prefer ham and pineapple, but I prefer salami and olives, that doesn't mean that my taste in pizzas is right or yours is wrong. It just means we have different tastes. And similarly, we may have different values. So I recommend reading through the list, which is located in a handout underneath this video called the Common Values Handout. And what I want you to do is rate each value according to its importance to you. Okay, so make sure to score at least 10 of them as very important. And as you do this exercise, notice what your mind does. For example, if you score a value as very important, but you're currently behaving inconsistently with that value, your mind is likely to beat you up or say, "Who are you kidding?" Right? So notice what your mind is saying and what you're feeling as you complete the exercise. Okay, so pause the video at this point, complete the Common Values handout, then come back and play the video again. All right, great work. So what did that exercise reveal about the sort of person you want to be, the way you want to treat others and yourself, and what you want to stand for in life? Very commonly, when we do this exercise, we discover significant gaps between our values and our actions. Right? When we find a gap between your values and your behavior, there's no need to beat yourself up. Look at it as simply a reminder that you are a normal human being, not a fictitious superhero. No one acts on their values all the time in every domain of life, and it's unrealistic to expect to do so. Sure, we can all get better at acting on our values, but we'll never be perfect. And keep in mind, the more destructive or self-defeating our behavior, the more likely it is that we are acting inconsistently with our core values. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Pause this video, grab a piece of paper, and write down those very important top 6 values. Okay? So write those down now, pause the video, and then come back. Okay, so for the next few months, carry this piece of paper around in your wallet or purse and pull these values out frequently to reflect on them. The more you are in touch with your core values, the more you can draw on them for inspiration and guidance. Right? And of course, as always, let me know how that goes by leaving a comment below this video. In the next lesson, I'm going to share a really important message with you, something it's really important that you are careful not to do when it comes to your values. All right, so I'll see you there.